Water, the foundation of biological life itself. For when God first said, "Let there be," His Spirit interacted with the waters of the void to produce the building blocks of our world. And once His Spirit has transformed the waters, He divided them into two measures. From one measure, God produced dry land, trees, birds, fish, land animals, etc., and eventually humans. And from the other, the innumerable stars and planets that now fill the void. But there is also a non-physical dynamic to water that is vital for life. Water has played critical roles throughout the entire history of humankind, well beyond its hydrating properties. In fact, we see that even in Eden, provisions were made for a river running through it to branch off into 4 tributaries to water the surrounding regions. Thankfully, some of the lands that were watered from Eden still bear the same names today as they did when Scripture was recorded, which assures us that Eden was an actual place and it's possible for humans to host the Spirit of God here on earth. Adam lived more than 800 years after he and Eve ate the fruit God forbade them to, despite God having said he would die if he ever did. But it wasn't just he who would benefit from a stayed death sentence. All known by his name would as well. This period of grace would also allow God access to future generations of Adam and Eve's descendants to implement a plan of reconciliation, even though it was their actions that created a state of enmity between God and all the earth. God's first choice of their descendants through whom he would work to implement his plan of reconciliation was their second son Abel. However, his brother Cain took issue with God bypassing him as the firstborn to show preference to the younger sibling. But Cain's resentment ran deep, and he soon developed an intense hatred for Abel, despite God telling him that it was because of his own shortcomings why he chose him. But that hatred would get the better of Cain and drive him to murder Abel. When God created the wider universe, earth and humankind, he did so in a place that was completely dark. It was only during his presence when he was at work crafting creation that there was light, periods of time for each phase referred to as days. Conversely, the alternating periods of darkness between each phase when God was not present or working are referred to as nights. But this also holds true for everyday life, that where God isn't present and working, darkness rules. When God breathed the Spirit of life into Adam, he received a measure of light. So did Eve, by the rib she received from him. Light that was replenished during times of fellowship with God's Spirit in Eden, but would then fade after their eviction. For when the position of dominance he conferred on Adam was usurped, God also lost access to Eden and the fellowship with creation he enjoyed. This means that God being absent from the earth would result in a period of pronounced darkness. Adam and Eve would eventually have a third son, whom they named Seth, and through whose lineage God would implement his plan to send another principle, like Adam, to reintroduce his presence on earth and have fellowship with humankind once again. From Seth's descendants, God chose his son Enos, during whose lifetime the earth witnessed a period when men were sincerely calling on the name of the Lord, but it was relatively brief, for a spate of intermarrying would result in dramatic events. It was a time of marrying and being given into marriage between female descendants of Eve and those whom they encountered as they settled lands further from Eden with each generation, unions of darkness and light where darkness prevailed. The generations of the descendants of this uneven yoking between those who were effectively gods and those who weren't, saw explosions of extreme violence and corruption throughout the regions they inhabited that was also witnessed by God. When God looked across the earth in the ninth generation of Eve's descendants and beheld a sight that caused him to regret having created humankind, he reverted to the sentence of death that was imposed on them for their transgression in Eden. For what he saw was a mass of humanity where there was no difference between those who could trace their lineage back to Adam and Eve, who were his chosen, and those who did not have the same spiritual pedigree. Both were equally corrupt. The level of wickedness consuming the earth was more than the grace God extended allowed for, and he made the decision to end all life on earth. Nevertheless, humankind would get a reprieve, for God is also just, and one man would stand in the breach for all. It was a man named Noah, whom God recognized as righteous in every way, and could not bring himself to destroy him along with everyone else. Therefore, God would make a way for Noah and his family to escape Adam's sentence of death using water.